everyone, it's Amber Spotted Elk at the Paper Owl and welcome to my channel. Today I have some Valentine's decor for you. These were so simple, so easy. They're definitely more on the earthy tones, more kind of boho-esque style. I typically don't decorate for Valentine's Day, so I wasn't wanting to do like the super vibrant poppy Valentine's Day colors. I wanted to keep it a little bit more muted, and I did some grays and pinks in my last video. If you didn't see that, definitely check it out. But I wanted to go even further away from the traditional Valentine's Day colors, and I am so happy with the way that these turned out. I absolutely love them. I love the colors. I love the style that they ended up turning out to be, so hopefully you enjoy them too. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. It really does help my channel. Comment below, let me know which of these projects is your favorite. And as always, if you'd like to become part of the Paper Owl family, hit the subscribe button, hit that bell so you get notified every single time that I upload. And without further ado, let's get started.
Hey everyone! So we're going to start out today with this wooden heart cutout from the Dollar Tree and some of this yarn. I got this yarn from the Dollar Tree as well, and some of the twine we're going to be using too. So these hearts came in a pack of 8, I believe it was, and I am just wrapping this yarn around them. So I did a cream, the mustard yellow, like a burnt orange, a forest green, and then the twine, and those are going to be our colors for our projects today. So I love this yarn. I love these colors. I love that I got that from the oh my goodness, I already can't speak. We're first project in 1 minute and I'm not able to speak. So that's happening. Anyway, I just can't believe that I got this yarn for $1, which is just so amazing. I pretty much didn't have to use hot glue on the whole thing except when I was trying to wrap around that pointed tip right there. And so that was just really to make sure that it was staying secure. But I wanted to wrap these enough so that they felt a little bit fluffy, a little bit soft, and you weren't feeling a whole lot of that wood heart underneath. So that was kind of the look that I was going for. And I made my wrappings just kind of at random, but I did it so that they weren't like too crazy. So I did one in each color as you saw there. Love the way they turned out. I'm using these longer skewers that I got from the Dollar Tree. And again, we're using the same yarn, and I'm taking about 6 inches and I think I made like 12 6-inch pieces of yarn. And then I'm just taking that and I'm going to tie it at the one end of the skewer. So it really doesn't matter which end you use. I mean, I guess it kind of does. I did the dull end, so that doesn't have that like pointed tip. I did that for tying these around, and then we're going to make kind of a pointed arrow tip at the other end. So I guess if you don't want that pointed tip at the end, then use the dull end for this part of the arrow. So basically you can see I'm just tying a simple like shoestring knot like you're going to tie around your shoes. For this knot, I didn't have to like glue it down or anything. It stayed really nicely. And as you can see here, for a lot of these, I make the knot first and just leave that opening and then tighten it onto the dowel. And that made this a little bit easier. That's the process that I feel worked the best versus like trying to hold the dowel down and wrap it around and tie the knot on. Everything's just like moving and, whatever. So I feel like making the knot and then placing it on and tightening it onto the dowel was the best way to go about this. So I just kind of tighten them all up, straighten them out. I take my scissors and I cut them at a pretty drastic angle because I want it to have that angle like the end of an arrow. And so that's it for that side pretty much. I mean, I just made sure that I liked the angle, that the sides looked pretty even. You could always fold the one side over and use that as a guide to how you want your other side cut. I didn't feel that was super necessary, but if you like to make sure things are like super even and symmetrical, that's always an option that you can do. And then what I do is I take some thick paper that I had. This isn't just like printer paper. So another good thing for this would be like cardboard. But basically, I cut out the triangle shapes in this thick paper and then wrapped the yarn around it. Now with this, I did want to show you that I make sure that my arrow is aligned with the way my yarn is faced. So I don't want my arrow faced a different way and then the yarn at the end of it to be like lopsided. So you do want to make sure like the way your yarn lays flat, you want your arrow to lay flat as well, if that makes sense. And then I just wrap this around that paper to give it a nice, arrow looking vibe here. It doesn't take a ton to do this. I didn't want it to be too fluffy and lose that shape of the triangle. So basically just wanted to make sure I had good coverage over my paper that I had laid down, and make sure that it's all staying on there nicely. It's a smaller piece, and so you do have to use more hot glue on this versus the other stuff that we've done so far. So and you'll only need like a tiny bit. You'll want to be careful with that, because if you use too much and it gets all over your yarn, it is very apparent. So I would just use caution with the hot glue. Next up, we are going to take these beads. These are Dollar Tree beads. I had already painted to that kind of like almond color, and then I used those same skewers and put a few beads on and painted them in the colors we're using today. So I used Curry from Waverly, and then I also had like a burnt orange from Craftsmart, and then I used, I believe it was Fern, and added a little bit of black in to get the color that I wanted. And so I just used some of the plain beads that I had painted previously. Like I had done a whole bunch of these beads from the Dollar Tree too, just try and prep them so that they'd be ready when I needed them for a project. But what's nice is those same skewers, you can place the beads on there and then paint it on the skewers, which is really nice. So that's the best way I've found to go about painting those beads. So you will take the skewer, put the beads on, and then paint it while it's on the skewer, and they kind of move around, make it easier for you to paint. So that's always just if you're going to paint the Dollar Tree beads. Honestly, it's a lot of work to paint the Dollar Tree beads, and it's not always worth it. So I did have a pack that I just went through, and I did a whole bunch of them. I painted them this kind of like neutral almond color, and then I've just kind of kept them on hand. But since then, I have purchased beads elsewhere, Hobby Lobby, Amazon, what have you, just so that they're prepped and ready. I think it is worth it if you're going to be using beads in your projects a lot versus spending it just seems like enormous amount of time to prep your beads so that they are a color that you want, versus like the bright colors that are used in the package that comes from the Dollar Tree. But anyway, I just take the twine and I put some hot glue on one end of the twine to make it stiff so that it goes through the beads well. I take one of those wooden hearts and I stained it with a dark walnut stain, and I just kind of put the beads on how I wanted, nothing like super crazy. I didn't make it super long either. I just wanted it to be a nice little wooden piece here, and then I make a small tassel at the one end to finish it off. So I love the way that this turned out. I mean, I love the colors. I love that it's a smaller wooden bead garland kind of thing. Excuse me. So I just was so happy with how this turned out. I'm so happy with the colors. The paint colors ended up matching like so incredibly well. I was just so in love with that, and I love these earthy tones. And you can see I'm using this painter's tape to make my tassel at the end. Basically, you find something to wrap your twine around a few times, and then you'll take some twine and tie it off to make a little loop at the one end, and then you will cut the strings that are looped together at the other end, and that makes your tassel. So you can see that's what I'm doing there. I cut those off, and then you have your tassel. You tie that loop onto the last piece of twine on your garland here. I know it's not a garland, but your piece here. So, oh, but I just love the way this turned out. The colors were great, everything. So I am taking these larger wood beads. I got those for 69 cents. Like, I don't even know where. Like, it was either a thrift store or a yard sale or something, but there are just 6 of those large wooden beads. And then I'm taking the wooden grapevine wreaths from the grapevine wreaths. They're not wreaths, grapevine hearts, from the Dollar Tree, and I'm taking my 4 colors of yarn that I have, and I am putting some hot glue on each end, and that again is going to harden that yarn so that it can go through the beads easier. You can always like thread your yarn onto a needle if you have a large enough needle to do that, and then you can, you know, pull the needle through your beads if that works for you, but whatever you want to do. So I basically am just putting 1 bead on each of my pieces of yarn, and then I'm putting a large bead on one end, and then I'm putting my little grapevine heart attached on there as well. And I use like a little bit of floral wire that I had gotten, and I love this stuff. Like, I don't think it's specifically floral wire, actually. It's just a wire, but I got it on clearance from Hobby Lobby for like 35 cents, and I think I got like 50 feet of it or something crazy, but it just turned out so handy. So I basically just do that all the way down. I make loops on each end of my garland, and there's the wire that I used. It just is so nice. It's come in so handy. So if you ever find things on clearance that like you may not have a specific project for, but you know you could definitely use, pick it up. It's worth it. So I basically just, you know, beads and my little wreaths, and that's it. Turned out so cute. I'm taking this frame that was left over from one of the canvases at Dollar Tree using my dark walnut stain. I'm going to stain that. I take these large not painter sticks, they are the jumbo craft sticks. And then I'm taking 8 of the Dollar Tree tumbling tower blocks. And so I'm going to paint all of those. Not paint, stain. I told you I already couldn't talk during this video, so we're just going to not even address those things, I think. So I do all the staining on my pieces. I first did cut down my craft sticks to the size that I needed to cover the canvas frame, and basically we're going to be making kind of like a little tray, or kind of like a riser almost. And so I stain all my pieces, and I love this stain. I like that dark, rich, wood stained look. It's just a favorite of mine. Like, this dark walnut is one of my favorites. So I get all those done. I do the tumbling tower blocks, and then I do my frame as well. And then we are going to attach the sticks to the frame. And I did sand these down so that it was a nice surface to be working on and give it a little bit of that antiqued look or more worn look versus not. So one thing when you're working with some of these things from the Dollar Tree and staining them, anywhere they used like a wood glue or something like that, the stain is not going to soak in there, and so it looks much lighter. And so originally I was going to do this a little bit differently, but the spots where there was wood glue, it was just so apparent, and so I changed my design up just a little bit so that those would be hidden a little bit more. So I was initially going to put these craft sticks at the bottom of the frame so that there was that little bit of a lip there, but instead I put them on the top so that it would hide some of those blemishes from where they used wood glue when they were putting this together. So I did add a little bit of E6000, and I mean a little bit. I did not do very much, and then added hot glue around that so that this was going to be like a nice sturdy piece, especially because I'm going to be putting some legs on here and want to make sure everything is nice and sturdy and holding together. And so to also ensure that, since I was putting these at the top, there needed to be a brace down the middle, just because it wasn't going to be strong enough without that. So I took some extra scrap pieces of wood that I had, and I put those down the middle to create a nice firm brace, and that worked out so well. It just created so much more stability to the piece. So I'm so glad that I did that. And then for the legs, I'm going to be using 2 tower blocks for each leg. So again, I am going to be using the E6000 and the hot glue, just to make sure that this has a nice sturdy hold, and it has a sturdy hold for while it's drying. And that's what the hot glue part is for. So with the hot glue and the E6000, it gives you that long-term and that short-term hold to it, which is really nice. So anytime you're working on a project and you need that, that's a great option. You could also use super glue or wood glue. Those are really good options for this as well. And then alongside the hot glue while you're waiting for everything else to dry, which is great. So I get my legs all put together and situated here, and again I'm using the E6000 and the hot glue to attach them, and making sure that I get them placed exactly how I want them. And even though I did that, I ended up putting one the wrong way, but luckily the hot glue hadn't like totally set in, so I was able to fix it. So you can see both my legs are facing the same way right there. Great, loving that. And then this one I put the other way. It should have been just flipped 180 degrees. So it looks a little bit funny right there. And then this one I end up putting the right way. So I realize that and take it off and redo it. So thankfully I noticed, and it wasn't like, sitting out in my house with like a funny leg that's just hanging out kind of weird. So yeah, definitely check which way your legs are pointing and make sure they're the right way. So but I've got it kind of situated there. It was seeming to be just like a tiny bit wobbly, and so what I did was I added some extra glue around the pieces just to make sure they were going to stay. Like I said, I want this to be kind of a sturdier piece. It's basically like a riser, and so I want it to be able to hold things and rise things up if I need them to, and have it be nice and sturdy. So because it is on like a little bit of the taller end for a riser than the like traditional risers you see. But again, here are the paints that I used. The Craft Smart Orange Spice, and then it was the Fern Waverly with a little tiny bit of black, the Curry from Waverly, and then I also used this antique white for the other portion there, but I colored that wooden heart, and I just glued it in the corner of my riser there just to add a little bit extra, and I love the way that turned out. I did add a little bit of ribbon around the edging as well, just to kind of clean it up a little bit, and I really feel like that kind of helped finish the piece off, and give it a more finished look, so to speak. And here I am just making sure my heart is completely dry because I had just finished painting it. So, heaven forbid I wait for the paint to dry by itself. So put a little bit of hot glue on there, not much, and just lay that down in the corner for just a little extra pizzazz, a little extra zhuzh to the piece. Don't mind my Netflix going on there. Sorry, you guys. But anyways, here are final products. So I've got our yarn hearts and then our tassel on our riser. And I just love the way that that tassel piece turned out. And then our heart garland. I am just so in love with these colors. I love these earthy tones. They just speak to me so much, and I, to be able to do something kind of Valentine's Day-esque and not have it be, red, white, and pink is just, great. I love that. And then, of course, our arrows, and I love the way that those turned out. There's so many different ways you can set those up and display them, but I'm so happy with this little Valentine's Day vignette with some more earthy tones. Let me know which one is your favorite. Definitely like this video if you like it, comment below, and thank you so much for watching, and happy crafting.